Jai Ma Kamakhya, Jai Matara, Jai Bhairava. So today I will be speaking to you about something that's extremely crucial and a very integral part of the Durga Saptashati or the Chandipaath. So the last video that I made was on certain basic aspects of the Chandipaath, and there have been many comments as well as mails and questions that have come with respect to the Chandipat. Chandipat is a very elaborate and broad topic, and equally important is that though it is not easy to master right on day one, however, there is no denying that it is perhaps one of the most powerful texts that we have for Shakti Upasana. There is the amount of praise that is heaped on the Chandipat in the Tantras is endless. There is nothing, it says, that cannot be done for somebody who has mastered the Chandi Upasana, which includes the Chandipat. So, not just knowing the Chandipat, it's very important to understand this. There may be people who can recite the Chandipat very well. That does not automatically guarantee a blessing of the goddess or the ability to do the innumerable prayogas that are associated with the Chandipat. In fact, Chandipat is so universal that even the Vedic sampradayas that we have, even the Shankara Mathas and others, have taken it, the Chandi Yagya or the Saptashati Parayana has been well adopted by all the Vedic sampradayas as well, because of its immense power and the very real effects that it causes when the Chandi Upasana, Saptashati Parayana, etc. is done in the right manner. However, remember that attaining perfection in Chandi Upasana is a little bit more tougher than just knowing the Chandipat, because it's not, there is, as I always say, the depth of a sadhana depends on an individual, and it is never about, you have to know the rules, but apart from the rules, you need to add something extra from within yourself before an individual reaches that level where he or she is in contact with the deity. So, one very fundamental aspect of the Durga Saptashati and the Chandi Upasana is the Navarna Mantra. I mean, everybody who has any knowledge or who has any interest in Devi Upasana would have heard of the name of Navarna. It is such a powerful mantra that all the best commentators, scholars, texts have spoken about it as it's like the very essence, the power of the Brahman. Brahman is, I don't mean Brahman means the ultimate reality that we consider in the Vedanta. So it is like the executive power of the Brahman is contained within this small but very potent mantra. So the Navarna mantra, as you all might be knowing, the mantra will be written in the description. It contains the Vijakshara. Vijakshara is the seed syllable which contains the essence of the power of a deity. So it contains the Vijakshara of Kali, of Saraswati, of Lakshmi, Saraswati. Along with it, it also invokes the form of Chamunda. Now, this mantra has been praised as the very incarnation of the Brahma Shakti, which is the ultimate power of the universe. And it is said that there is almost nothing that can be achieved by somebody who has mastered recitation of this mantra. And if we just look around ourselves in today's India, perhaps there is no other mantra that is as popular, as famous, and as sort of, the number of people who chant this mantra is innumerable. Whether they're doing it correctly or incorrectly is a different matter. But there is no denying that the Navarna mantra is sort of the most famous of all Devi mantras at this point in time. Perhaps there is some spiritual reason for this. It's not a random act. And it is also perhaps the reason that why, in a way, if you look at it, that the Navaratri Upasanas are perhaps the biggest Hindu religious festivals in the whole year, the most widely celebrated in a way. The Navarna Mantra contains, as the name suggests, there are 9 parts to the mantra. If you chant the mantra and not just chant the mantra, if you slowly break it down, there are 9 syllables in the mantra, and each of these contain one of the powers of the Navadurgas, the 9 forms of Durga, 9 forms of Chandi. The number 9 is very, very crucial in Devi Upasana. Whether it is the 9 days of the Navaratras or the 9 forms of Durga, which is mentioned in the Devi Kavacham that comes in Chandipaath, or sometimes for a lot of specific prayogas of Devi, the number 9 becomes very crucial for 9 days or 9 recitations or 9 Fridays, etc. There are very various things that can be done with the number 9. Incidental 9 also happens to be the number of grahas. So in a way, Devi Upasana and the number 9 is so intricately connected, because when the goddess is pleased on an individual through his or her upasana, then there is a certain degree of bhoga and aishwaryam that comes to the individual. There's opulence, there is a manifestation of Shakti that will happen. Whereas when it is a blessing from Shiva or Vishnu, it may or may not translate into anything material. It may just transform an individual into a very yogic or spiritual state. But when it comes to Devi Upasana, which is why it is so prominent in the Kali Yuga, and perhaps it will be the most important sadhana as Kali Yuga progresses, it gives an individual both a more positive rearrangement in the material sphere within the limits of his destiny. This is very important. Remember that it is within the limits of the destiny, because nobody in the Kali Yuga has that kind of power to overturn their destiny 100%. I mean, it's one thing to say and make a very jingoistic statement that I'll do enough sadhana and completely turn the dictates of the grahas, but in reality, it almost never happens. So we need to keep the reality, the actual understanding of human capacity, competency, and what degree and type of results can be attained by an individual. However, keeping all that in mind, so far as the adrira karmas are concerned of an individual, which means the non-fixed karmas or the drira adrira karmas, where part of it is fixed and part is non-fixed, in that circumstances, worship of Devi properly, vidhivat upasana, in the right manner, in the right system, it is done. And when she gets pleased with an individual, there is an immediate upsurge of opulence in their life. It could be anything, a specific power of speaking, fame, money, anything. I mean, there's no limit to the manifestation of Shakti around us. Whole world is Shakti. Whole world is a manifestation of Shakti. In that, she can give excellence to an individual in one or more of these spheres. Along with it, there is also spiritual practice, spiritual depth that she can give. So Devi Upasana has this thing. It gives both the bhoga and the yoga together comes to an individual. Here the bhoga is not in a negative sense, but more like there is a manifestation of the Shakti that will happen in the material plane, and it is bound to happen. It is impossible that somebody is blessed by the Divine Mother and there is no manifestation of that Shakti somewhere or the other. It need not mean like a lot of physical material wealth or something, but it could mean something extraordinary. Let's just say, for example, Kalidasa. Even after so many centuries, we consider him to be one of the greatest poets that ever came. And that is entirely because of the blessings of the Divine Mother that came to him. So, something like this that will make them extraordinary, remarkable, and remembered, perhaps, depending on the degree of the blessing that comes. So, Navarna Mantra has a connection to the number 9, because there are 9 forms of Shakti, of Chandika, of Durga that are already encoded in the Navarna Mantra. And these 9 powers are sort of invoked and awakened when the Upasana of the Navarna Mantra is done. Okay. Any kind of Chandi Upasana, specifically Durga Saptashati, is incomplete, or rather, it does not bring out the right results until there is equivalent amount of sadhana of the Navarna Mantra that is done along with it. It is like it's like the energizing thing. It's like that which will awaken the consciousness, and then in that awakened state, when the Chantipaath or the Durga Saptashati recitation is done, it brings a very powerful transformative effect on the Upasaka. There are many places where people believe that Navarna Mantra has to be chanted because even in the Gita Press book that we find, and many other books also, we find the Navarna Mantra is often mentioned with the Pranava, the Omkara at the beginning. That, however, is not the way one should be chanting the Navarna if one is keen on doing Chandi Upasana. So remember this, if you are doing Chandi Upasana because you want to attain to a very high degree of proficiency, or rather some degree of spiritual uplift through Chandi sadhana, returning or sort of reaching closer to the goddess in a way, that is when you will need to chant the Navarna mantra without the pranava. It is only 9 syllables, that's it. The pranava is actually not a part of the mantra. The sadhana has a few rules. It cannot be done just like that. You need to still have either an initiation or an upadesham from somebody competent who has to check whether you have the capacity to sustain the energy of the Navarna mantra, because it does create the first three Vijas, which is Kali and Saraswati and Lakshmi, are fine. It's when it comes to Chamunda that there is a very intense Shakti that is awakened. Interestingly, there is in some of the older texts, we find that great scholars have had their in a way, how do I put it? So they had their own discussions and debates on the origin of the term Chamunda. Some believe that the word Chamunda is not even of Sanskrit. It is perhaps an ancient form of the goddess who was prevalent in this subcontinent. And then, as slowly, it's a form that is older than the texts in a way. So, as the Chandipaath developed, as the texts developed, as the Upasana Paddhatis developed over centuries, this form of the goddess was well integrated within the Hindu Shakta Upasana of the Divine Mother. And that is why the name Chamunda has remained as it is. Though we find dhyanas of Chamunda and various other attributes of Chamunda, all of them are present in the texts. But the name Chamunda itself, according to many great scholars and Vidwans, is not of Sanskrit origin, but perhaps it's of a, maybe there was a deity with that name which was already popular in the subcontinent along the time when the tantras and the formulation of the tantric principles and the shastras were going on. So it was a pre-tantric deity, a deity who was already there. And because she was so powerful, so ubiquitous, so ancient in a way, I mean, Chamunda, the Swarupa of Chamunda, though we find so here is an interesting conundrum. I mean, in the Durga Saptashati, we find that in the Markandeya Purana, which contains the Durga Saptashati, the core text, the 13 chapters, we find the emergence of the form of Chamunda. That is the spiritual perspective, that where there is the battle going on, and then a form of Kali emerges out of Parvati, and she destroys Chanda and Munda, and then takes the heads of Chanda and Munda and comes back to Parvati. And then Parvati tells her that henceforth you will be known in the world as Chamunda. So this is the spiritual origin of Chamunda. On the material, on the historical space, or the what is known as, in the normal understanding of how texts progress, and the historical understanding is also equally important, because without that you will miss out very interesting nuances. So in that, the Markandeya Purana is perhaps a text that comes to us from around the maybe the 7th or the 8th century, around that time. So that means that the mention of Chamunda before the Markandeya Purana is very rare, almost non-existent. And this also means perhaps that the deity Chamunda was already present even before the Purana came into existence, or in a formalized manner. I mean, maybe it was older in a spoken manner, oral manner. It was still older than this. However, the existence of the deity is very, very, very ancient. In a way, the whole of our Shakti Upasana that we have today somehow pegs itself around this form of Chamunda. There is no form as ancient as Chamunda. Over time, her iconography has changed from very, very fierce to slight changes. There are more names, epithets associated with Chamunda. in some of the older iconographies, you'd see that there are scorpions on her body. Sometimes she's shown as very emaciated. That's all like a skeleton with only bones that are visible, sort of very old figure, dried up, shriveled. Sometimes she has a very peculiar mudra, as if she's a little, she's acting a little coy or shy, a little bit shy. But that's kind of a lila. That's more of. I mean, there have been many speculations on why that mudra was there in the older vigrahas of Chamunda. Some believe that it is her. It's like a play acting that she does in terms of when there is some kind of a negative energy or something there, as if she's just waiting to pounce on it, because she's extremely fierce. The ferocity of Chamunda is unmistakable. There is no doubt about it. So all this is just a little bit of the history, but eventually the person giving the Diksha of Chamunda of Navarna Mantra has to test and see if it is suitable for an individual. Though in this age, a large number of people are fit to chant the Navarna Mantra, that is because we are so exposed to it, exposed to the huge upsurge of Devi Upasana during the, especially the Ashwin Navratris, the Durga Puja and the Navratra and the this festival that just went by and has become so popular that almost everybody someday or the other has toyed around with this mantra or chanted a little bit to see. So there is no doubt about the potency of this mantra. For people who have some kind of an upadesham on the mantra, or has any type of diksha, so for that matter, of Shakti Upasana, for them specifically, the sadhana of Navarna Mantra completes it is a sadhana in itself, by the way. On the other hand, it is also a sadhana that helps and complements and uplifts the Durga Saptashati. So Durga Saptashati, if it has to be made into a mantra, instead of reciting a Purana, if it has to, that energy of the mantra has to come in, then the Navarna Mantra has to be chanted along with it. Whereas the Navarna by itself is also a sadhana. One can just do the Navarna Mantra sadhana. It is said that 9 lakhs of japa is required for the mantra to fully activate, following the rules of mantra sadhana. 9 lakhs of japa, and it should be done as quickly as possible in the least amount of time. Apart from that, the number of rules connected to the Navarna Mantra japa is very less. One can use a Rudraksha mala, one can use a Sphatika mala, one can use a Lal Hakik mala also for this. All that is required is a diya, a photo of Durga, Devi Durga, or any form that is associated with Durga, and then one has to keep chanting this, following the basic rules of mantra sadhana, which is that the same number of count has to be done on every day, and like this continue for till a count of 9 lakhs is completed. That activates the mantra completely. And in fact, if somebody tries that sadhana, assuming that he or she has the capability to do that sadhana, do not try the 9 lakh sadhana just by listening to a video. Like, I'm just saying this for the sake of knowledge. If anybody is interested in this kind of a sadhana, they have to build up their capacity through the current upasanas that they do, the Vishesh sadhanas and the other sadhanas over time, and keep praying to the goddess so that there is an opportunity that comes. In terms of sadhana, you cannot rush into something. You have to wait for the right time and the right guidance that comes. So then 9 lakhs of japa has to be completed. By the time somebody does 9 lakhs of japa of this mantra, even a homa is not required. This is the beauty of this power of this mantra. It's so activated. It's believed that just by japa itself, it shows its complete potency and power. And in many cases, if it is done with right concentration, people will have almost a direct experience of the deity that is that powerful. However, a caution has to be followed that you cannot jump into it without first preparatory sadhanas, whether it is related to the, somebody giving you some advice, or even the sadhana with respect to the 32 names of Ma Durga are very, very good preparation for going eventually into the Navarna Mantra complete sadhana, or even the chanting of the Kunjika Stotram. But yes, there is no doubt that the Navarna has absolutely terrific potency, and once it starts activating for an individual, If they have a yantra of the Navarna, that's even more powerful. But even without a yantra, if it activates for individual, there is almost nothing that it cannot do, because it brings about, it invokes the power of Kali, Ma Kali, it invokes the power of Mahalakshmi, invokes the power of Mahasaraswati. These three fundamental Shaktis govern everything in the known universe that we know. There is almost nothing beyond that. And apart from this, it also invokes Chamunda, who is the most powerful protective deity that one can imagine. And together, as many great scholars have noted, eventually it leads one to an experience of the highest spiritual state. I mean, it's way beyond the state of the human mind. It kind of transcends one's Shakti and takes it, I mean, it transcends the known world as we know it. And it transcends the capacity of the stage where the mind goes, the rational mind goes beyond that and takes the Upasaka into a very altered state of consciousness when it is correctly done. So Navarna is, there is no, I mean, regardless of how much you praise the mantra, it is still not enough. It's one of the greatest, in a way you can call it as the Maha Mantra among the Shakta mantras. Its power is that terrific and that intense. And correctly done, I mean, there is no limit to what the Navarna mantra can achieve. So I'll end the video with that. I hope it answers some of the queries related to Navarna that we had received in mails and comments. Jai Ma Kamakhya, Jai Matara, Jai Bhairava.